Morning, everybody. We'll call to order our September 12th, 2017 regular meeting of the Mason County Board of Commissioners. We'll begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. Chief Sperling, if you wouldn't mind leading us today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, would please take the roll.
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner District 2, Kevin Schutte.
Here.
Commissioner District 3, Terry Drexler. Here.
Very good. Thank you. Item number 4, correspondence and organizational business. If the clerk would please report the correspondence.
Resident Karen Hare sent 2 letters, one regarding funds from the property tax levy, the other regarding night staffing at the jail. The Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board sent an application for the Shelton Rotary Club. And the Washington State Department of Ecology sent a letter regarding conditional approval of the Shoreline Master Program update.
Thank you. Takes us to item number 5, which is an open forum for citizen input. A member of the public would like to come forward and address the commission on items that are not on today's agenda. They can do so at this time. Please approach the podium and the chair will recognize you. Okay, hearing none. Move to item number 6, which is adoption of today's agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the adoption of today's agenda as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve today's agenda as presented. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? And the motion carries. Item number 7, approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move the approval of the August 28th, 2017 briefing minutes.
I will second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from August 28th's briefing. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Item number 8 is the approval of our action agenda. There's only one item on today's action agenda, so I will dispense with the separate vote and discussion thing because we will have a discussion and vote on one item. So I will read that item and then we will move on from there. Item 8.1, approval of the January 2017 through December 2019 collective bargaining agreement for Mason County's community and family health members. At this time, I would entertain a motion or discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of action agenda item 1.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 8.1 on today's action agenda. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Item number 9 is other business, an opportunity for department heads and elected officials to address the commission. If there's an elected official or department head that would like to come forward now.
It's quite a bit to go over, but it'll be released to format later. Not trying to give a lesson here, but I was a teacher for a number of years, and I taught science. One of the things that we learn by teaching kids is that it's not always the end result that's always important. It's how did you arrive at that result, so that at a later point in time you might be able to reproduce that, or if something comes up in a similar fashion, you'd be able to look at that process and see if the process is good all the way through, so you could continue to produce those results. Last week there were some comments made here that I don't feel that were exactly accurate. I've heard that today that maybe some of it's been worked out, but I think that part of that process that wasn't explained in there, and there was a lot of points that were not explained in that process to find out how did we arrive at this circumstance, what was the timeline, why did this come to fruition the way it did, and if we continue to do that, will it continue to happen again? So I've documented the timeline out, addressing the budget issues for our office and the adoption of the budget and the presentation of the budget. I'd like to go through that, and again, it was released yesterday to some folks, and they can have it again today. The Sheriff's Office would like to take an opportunity to clarify some statements made about the 2018 preliminary budget and the questions surrounding its submission. On June 26, 2017, the Board of County Commissioners sent instructions to elected officials and department heads to reduce the 2017 budgets due to a $2 million cash flow problem. The sheriff was required to cut $898,384 from his budget. This needed to be done by July 12th, essentially 10 days. which cannot be accomplished for contractual reasons and proper assessment of its impact on public safety mandates. July 10, 2017, the county auditor sends out preliminary budget instructions. The instructions included directions to email any new expenditures and BARS accounts to financial services staff. July 18, 2017, the BOCC conducts budget reduction hearings, and the $710,000 in recommended cuts by the sheriff is not accepted, and the BOCC required a full $898,000 in reductions. The sheriff's recommendations did not include layoffs to filled positions. The full $898,000 did in fact require laying people off. July 21, 2017, the 2018 budget, the 2018 benefits, benefit rates and ER&R rates are received by Director Pinter after requesting the information so that we could complete the preliminary budget. July 25, 2017, Sheriff Salisbury staff requests, as instructed by the auditor, to have account numbers entered into the county system so the sheriff's office can input them into the system prior to preliminary budget deadline. We are notified by email from financial services staff that the 187 lines that needed to be changed to reflect the 2018 budget will not be changed until Director Pinter authorizes. Later that day, Director Pinter requests the programmatic needs to recognize the sheriff's budget into two programs as outlined by the budget resolution for two programs, one for wages and benefits and one for operational cost. This process was being done to abide by the resolution, state BARS manual requirements, and the mid-year budget reductions which would impact the 2018 preliminary budget, as well as another potential $1.2 million in cuts to the office in 2018. The full programmatic impacts of the budget cuts were not known at the time of the request. July 27, 2017, the Sheriff's Office requests from Director Pinter a second time to have the lines changed so the Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy could meet the August 14th deadlines, with the reminder that only 2 weeks remain to complete this work. August 1, 2017, another email is sent to Director Pinter, a copy to the BOCC with requests to decide on the line changes to meet the next Friday deadline. He stated he will discuss this with the auditor's office and get back to us. The sheriff's office had already had a telephone discussion with the state auditor's deputy auditor and legal advisor, who stated they would not be involved in local government policy decisions. Mason County Undersheriff meets with Director Pinter to determine who we are to get guidance from: our auditor, who gave instructions to request changes in the budget instructions, or the budget director, as each is referring to the other. He is told that it is the auditor's decision. On August 3, 2017, the county auditor emails a response to the sheriff's office stating without programmatic justifications, the auditor cannot comply with the request. At the time of the request, the reorganization of programs due to the cuts and how they would immediately impact the 2018 budget were not clearly defined. More importantly, the sheriff's office has been notified that another $1.2 million in cuts may be required in 2018. This won't be known until after the ballot measure issue. The letter also claimed that our request for reorganization would lack transparency. The sheriff's office disagrees with that assessment, as all of the requests use proper state auditor accounting codes for the programs and follows the budget resolution for two programs. The request, in fact, makes the process more transparent and clear to the public where tax dollars are spent, wages and benefits from the sheriff's office to the newest employee, operational costs to include fixed contractual expenditures to discretionary or operational expenditures. On August 14, 2017, a detailed 300-line 2018 preliminary budget is submitted to the auditor, reflecting the sheriff's best estimate of his projections for law enforcement and jail operations. These were not in the format, as we could not get the lines changed as requested to reflect in the 2018 budget two different times. September 5, 2017, the 2018 budget process is presented by the BOCC by the auditor, to the BOCC by the auditor. Many statements were made that omitted what took place above. Furthermore, multiple assumptions were made that did not take into account that we did attempt to follow the established process and we were given the essential runaround. We, in good faith, submitted a complete preliminary which assumes what may happen in 2018 and 2019 based on potential future cuts. For 2 years, the Sheriff's Office has asked why this office is singled out, unlike any other office, and required to originally have 8 programs listed in the budget. No other office or department was required to list their individual programs out. If, as claimed, this is most accountable, most consistent, and most transparent way of doing business, then the question is, why the other offices and departments are not required to do the same thing. If this is about respecting the authority of individually elected officials to run their offices, then why are the sheriff's requests to organize and run his office being treated very differently than other departments and offices within the county? At the time the programmatic justifications were requested, we were still in the process of determining what the current and existing programs would survive in 2017 cuts and which may be impacted by further cuts. The timelines in which this work was requested was not only short-sighted, but was preventable. The BOCC already controls the wages and benefits and contracts with employees. They already control the fixed operational costs such as ER&R, IT, MACECOM, medical nursing for inmates. Approximately $13.5 million of a $14 million budget is already controlled by the BOCC. The remaining $500,000 is earmarked for other operational costs such as mandated training, bullets, gloves, etc. How much control and micromanagement does certain members of the board need when it already dictates almost all of the sheriff's budget to him without his input? Now they want to talk about positional control on top of this. BOCC staff inflated revenue projections for the adopted budget without my knowledge from what I estimated in my preliminary budget last year, and nothing was said about that in the accountability, consistency, and transparency process of concerns. Let's remember why we are in this position discussing this problem. The main issue at hand, and it came to light last April, is their cash flow problem of $2 million due to the most effective budget produced, as was claimed last year. It is not that my preliminary budget was not submitted in the proper format, that I was not allowed to submit it, I was not allowed into the process. In fact, in the last several years, the preliminary budgets have meant essentially nothing and have been completely disregarded until the last moment when adopted budget is forced upon the county offices and departments. I can have that ready for you. There are a lot of things that were not answered. And I think when we come to the end and we want to find an answer to a question, and can we find it consistently, just like we do in a science fair project or anything else, we have to follow the process. If you're not allowed to follow the process or to be a part of that process or be locked out of it, your answers are going to be inconsistent at the end. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other department heads or elected officials? Judge.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I usually don't read, but this morning I woke up and I drafted this in my head. I woke up early. As you know, I'm rarely able to attend these briefings because of my heavy court schedule, and it costs $60 an hour for a pro tem to come in and cover for me. Had a trial scheduled for yesterday that pled guilty at the last moment, and therefore I'm available yesterday afternoon and today. I've taken a few days off to attend the reunion of Vietnam vets with my husband. He worked in the Saigon morgue in 1972. Thus, I will not be able to attend next week's briefings. However, my administrator, Patsy Robinson, will be available in representing District Court, and I thought I'd let you know I'm not ignoring these important briefings. I have some concerns as the supplemental request has been postponed again. Part of that request involves the increases to salaries as a result of contracted negotiations. Staff have been, of course, paid pursuant to these agreements. We've been assured all along that our budgets would be modified to reflect those changes. Prior to the last review of the budget, most of the elected officials' budgets had been amended to reflect those changes. District Court is still in that limbo area, and I understand that Frank has been working on this closely with Patsy. They've reached figures. They know what they wish to present before the board to cover those expenses, and I think that they have agreement on it. It just hasn't made it to the board yet, and I'm not going to be able to speak to the board during a briefing because all odds I'll probably be in court if it's not next week. I'm a little concerned, Mr. Netherland, about your comments about throwing District Court under the bus, and I trust that won't have an impact on that supplemental request, and I hope that was just an offhanded, not meaningful comment.
Well, that was in regards to that I was bringing up that we didn't cut your budget. Then I was using you as the example of a budget we didn't cut.
Right. Well, the way it came out, it kind of made me nervous because there was talk about throwing district court under the bus next year. Or, anyway, so that's how it came out. And I've not had any issues with you in the past, and I hope we don't have any issues. But there was another comment that was made yesterday that concerned me, and that was the suggestion that elected officials and department heads, if they don't voluntarily cut their budgets by 17.5%, that the commission should cut those offices by another 2% as punishment for not following the commission's directives. It would seem to me that such a statement reflects an intimidating and retaliatory action that is in violation of statutes and the Constitution. RCW 36.40.010 controls the elected officials' input. Elected officials are required to provide, quote, detailed and itemized estimates both of the probable revenues from sources other than taxation and of all expenditures required by such office, department, service, or institution for the ensuing fiscal year. That's the statutory language that elected officials and department heads must follow. And that's what district court will continue to follow. As I've said before, I recognize the commission holds the purse strings and has the authority to amend these budgets, but it also has a duty to adequately fund the courts. We are still operating at 1995 staffing levels with 2017 staffing needs. We cannot outsource jobs performed in district court. You can throw us under the bus. You can't throw us under the bus because we're already there. I'm asking that the commissioners pull us out from under the bus and set us up right on the road. And thank you for your time.
Your Honor, I do want to apologize if you took it that way, because that is not, what I meant when I said that was, I'm going to have to use you as the example. And I didn't, in a group of all elected officials, to pull one out is like throwing them out under the bus when it's using them as the example. And the example that we used was, we chose not to cut your budget because we didn't think you would be able to handle that cut in any manner and still be able to function.
I understood that, but then it was followed with, but next year,
No,
we've got to make the cut.
Next year, at least not in my mind or anything. I was talking about you.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so I'll keep that in mind. You are referenced in my memo, but
Okay.
I'll keep that in mind.
All right.
I'll share it here. Thank you.
Sure.
Can I reapproach real quick? On a positive note, I just saw someone here that, actually halfway through, saw someone here that I wanted to recognize, a couple people. Mr. Houth received a phone call from me. Gosh, we've been working almost 24 hours a day, so I don't know how many days ago it was, a number of days ago, a week ago, in the late evening. And I don't really know Jerry very well, but he accepted my phone call. As many of you know, we've had a very challenging case that we've been working on in collaboration with numerous other agencies up and down the Puget Sound area. And as a result of the investigation and what was happening, we needed some very specialized equipment. And there wasn't a choice but to have it. It was either go out and get it privately or find somebody else. I called Mr. Houth in the evening and asked if there was a possibility that we could use our Public Works staff. One, because we know them, and two, because there were some things of relatively of distances that we needed to have done quickly. He agreed to work on that, and by the next day, he gave me some of their staff to help us on this investigation. We'll be recognizing that group later, Mr. Houth. I didn't talk to you last night, but I did somebody else. The reason that this is important is that, in my mind, and I don't know if the commission's been briefed on this by Mr. Houth yet, but if it hadn't been for Public Works stepping forward to assist us, in my view, the cost to the county, which we would have to cover without choice, would have been astronomical. And the second piece to this, and perhaps the most important, is that the staff and the operators that were running that equipment for us, very first class. I've been around equipment operators, and there's some people that aren't real smooth with a piece of equipment, and things are flying everywhere. And we were looking for some very specific evidentiary items, and the operator that Mr. Houth provided and the drivers and things came in there, and they were just absolutely fantastic. And it was noted by the other agencies that assisted us in that process, what a wonderful job and how cooperative they were. The last piece of that is due to the type of investigation we have, to go outside law enforcement, to be included into something. There's things that people are going to see and hear and be a part of that are not okay to go into the community until the conclusion of an investigation. And those folks out there just done an excellent job for us, Jerry, and I really appreciate that. And the undersheriff will be meeting with you on the financing end of that. But I really wanted to recognize in this month, I have a program coming up that we're going to request that those members of the staff will be out there. Quickly also, and I talked yesterday on the radio about this, there were some other folks there, Rob and Tina Goodwin at Rob's Excavation or Island Johnny's, whichever business you want to call it, came out and helped us out in a moment's notice, as well as folks from ProBuild. We needed some things like right now, and they were able to provide those for us. Thank each one of them, and Federal Bureau of Investigations, the Seattle Police Department, King County Sheriff's Office, Thurston County Sheriff's Office provided every single one of their deputies, every single one of their detective division to come over and help one day because our staffing just would not cover it. Washington State Patrol provided coverage for us on this. This is an ongoing investigation, so I'm not going into the details of it. Am I missing anybody, Jim, in that group that came out to assist us? Shelton PD and the Squaxin Island Police Department as well. Grace Harbor. This will be an Homeland Security. Just so many agencies involved. But Jerry, you were here this morning. I just wanted to recognize the quality of the county staff was, especially by the ERT team, the evidence response team from the FBI that flew in. They were very, very impressed with your personnel and their ability to operate in a small environment on quick notice with directions from 15 different people and still get the job done. And maintaining, the piece behind that is to be able to maintain the chain of evidence and also using Public Works to help us with that. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, any other department heads or? Okay, with that, we have 2 public hearings for today. We're not quite to 9:30 yet, so I will move on to item number 11, which is our board reports and calendar. I'll start if Commissioner Drexler would follow, and then we'll finish with Commissioner Netherland. Just a couple of quick items from last week. I had a chance to sit down with John Bolander and Evan Bowder from the Conservation District to talk about some of their projects that are going on. Also had a chance to talk with them about engaging with them on a potential shellfish initiative for the county. I think they're going to be a good partner for us in that regard. So very good conversation with John and Evan. I appreciate them coming over. Also had a chance to sit down with Kathy Haig last week. Kathy has been chairing our Housing Authority Board, and we have been working through some issues with that board to help stabilize the Housing Authority here in Mason County. And so Kathy came forward with some concerns and some options, and so I think we'll have an opportunity to continue working with Kathy and the members of that board as well. Finally, I also met with Ron Gold last week out in the Skoke Valley, talking about some of the flooding issues that are pretty common, and as we head into the fall, we know all too well what impact that has on the residents out there. And so we were talking about some of the proposals on road work and habitat restoration there that might help offset some of the issues that they experience year in and year out. Looking ahead, today I'll be meeting with James Thomas, the board president for the Mesa County Economic Development Council, chatting about some of the changes that are underway at the EDC, and then I'll have a MACECOM board meeting as well. Tomorrow, I'll be having a meeting with Dr. Yu and Chief Bakken regarding an opioid forum in Belfair this fall. So looking forward to that conversation. Dr. Yu has just done a tremendous job in making this a priority, and so I look forward to hearing some of their thoughts on a follow-up forum to a forum that was had last year. So I think that'll be very productive. Also, business after hours with the Shelton Chamber tomorrow at Smoke and Moe's. Then I'll be meeting with Scott Brewer from the Hood Canal Coordinating Council on Thursday, Shelton Rotary on Thursday, as well as a Veterans Court graduation in the afternoon. Friday, I will be out with the State Building Code Council for a quarterly meeting with them. And then that brings back to Monday for briefings and Tuesday for our regular meeting. Commissioner Drexler?
Thank you. As you know, I was out the last couple of weeks on vacation, so just have this coming week to report. Following today's meeting, I will have a meeting with the Lewis Mason Thurston Area Agency on Aging on their audit entrance conference. I'm chair of that group. In case Commissioner Netherland, I know you're also a fan of and friends of the Mosquito Fleet Winery. They're having a grape crush this evening, and I'll be attending that. So I just wanted to announce that in case you were also planning on crushing grapes. Tomorrow I have both the finance and the regular board meeting of the Olympic Region Clean Air Authority, and I will also be meeting with separately with the Economic Development Council Board President James Thomas regarding the change in leadership there. Have a meeting with the director of the Mason Transit Authority. I'll also be meeting separately with Scott Brewer of the Hood Canal Corning Council on Thursday, and then I'll be attending the regular meeting of the Cascade Pacific Action Alliance down in Elma. And then Friday I have a Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization meeting, and then the House of Representatives Committee on Health Care and Wellness is having their a meeting at the Mason General Hospital, and apparently once a year they will go to various healthcare agencies to conduct their regular meetings, and I'll be attending the one they're having at Mason General Hospital this year. And then Friday evening is a fundraiser for the Monarch victims. It's the Monarch Child Victims Advocacy Center who come alongside and provide services to both the family and the children of who have been involved in abuse and are in the court system. And so they received a drop in funding of probably $40,000, and this is a growing and essential service, and they're having a fundraiser. So I don't even know where it is, but I'll be attending that. But if you have any heart, I would recommend that you look them up and any heart for this type of an issue, and maybe help backfill some of the monies they did not get that they normally do. And then I will be spending the weekend in a long overdue time with my granddaughters this weekend. I'm back from briefings on Monday.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Netherland?
Okay, I met with constituents in regards to some building issues and then talked with staff on that. I also had met with some other ones later on in regards to a different building issue and the fact that they are looking to create our first tiny homes in Mason County. It's not a large amount, it's 3, but it is something. It is a start, and it's a private organization, which is where I think it's supposed to be. I also attended the Mason Transit Authority policy meeting. I had the lunches with the realtors. I met with the state auditor. I went to the Allen Community Association in regards to their transportation forum that they were having. Attended Sin's going away party, or actually it wasn't even a going away party. It was there to raise money for her retirement, for all this stuff that she had done. While we were there, they had amassed enough to give her a check for $15,000, and I don't even know how much came in after all that, because the auctions and the stuff was afterwards. What a wonderful lady is. I was asked to speak at that. I explained, when I first started, I never would have wore a jacket or anything, and had that lady that cost to be explained how you represent us when you go to different places has an effect. And I realized that, and Zin is like that jacket for Mason County and for Shelton. She is our tuxedo. Anybody that comes into a town, whether it be the governor or congressman, or even the president, who she doesn't want there, she said, but they all we could hold our head high by inviting them to her place and the food that she serves. She's a wonderful lady, and she's given a lot to this community. And she's taken a lot of that money back to her original homeland, although she says this is now her home. And she's going to be working also with people with leprosy and using some of that money to go there. Again, fantastic lady. A person from the school board was speaking at a Methodist church. I attended that. Romance Hill had a homeowners association meeting to talk about all the different things going up in the Belfair area, including any construction or connections up at the top of Romance Hill. And then that went very well, and then brings us back to our briefings. As soon as I leave this, I will be attending the Housing Coalition meeting, so I won't be till the grape thing till afterwards. but I will be attending that. We won't be conducting business. I'll be shoveling grapes. I'm not sure what part you do. You probably are doing.
Stemming.
Yeah. So I'll be way on the other end. I will be attending my first PTSA meeting tonight for Hawkins Middle School. Odd to believe that after all those years and coaching over 1,000 kids, I've never actually attended a PTSA meeting before, but I will now. Port of Greatview is having a special meeting. The opioid stakeholder meeting for North Mason is occurring. I'll be at that also. North Mason Chamber of Commerce board meeting. The ARC meeting, the meeting of the Economic Development Council. Bill Moyer, who was kind of a hero up in North Mason area, and when Theller went broke 12 years ago, he was, and I was asked to put it back together. That was, 7, 8 years before it fell apart. Bill Moyer stood up to help take care of all that, so I'll be attending his celebration of life. Harstein Island has a community club association meeting I intend on going to. Briefing, and I think that brings us back to our regular meetings.
I have one more
Sure.
question. I'd like to have a discussion. I wanted to ask you, Commissioner Schutte, if you intend on continuing your service on the Washington State Association of Counties Legislative Steering Committee.
I do.
Okay, then. I just wanted to make sure one of us applied for that. Okay, thanks.
I do need to add something. There is an event that I will be attending called the Cornhole event. It is a fun. That's what it's called. It is a fundraiser up in North Mason for the fire department. That will be occurring at Bine to raise money for their organization, and I will be attending that.
Okay, very good, thank you. Did you have?
Sorry about that, I forgot a couple people. My apologies because one of them is you. Commissioner, I want to thank you for taking the time to come out and meeting with the FBI and the other agencies and surveying the scene so you understand what it is that the public works officials are being involved in, as well as our office. And also, you kindly, we didn't have the funding to provide refreshments and things, and you kindly provided refreshments for our staff and the staff of the other agencies out there. I'm also commenting on John Brisgornia, middle school principal. Mr. Brisgornia drove by the scene and went back and picked up a number of items, refreshments and things for the Bureau while they were here as well. And last, I want to mention this, the elected officials meeting, unfortunately, not unfortunately, I was very fortunate to be selected to represent the state of Washington for Special Olympics in Nashville, Tennessee, because of our Special Olympics program last year. I will be gone during that elected officials meeting. I'll try to call them in. But that was scheduled out 3 or 4 months ago before that meeting was put in, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have done a really great job of stretching out an agenda that had one action item and getting past the 9:30 threshold to move into our public hearings. So at this time, we have item 10.1, which is a public hearing to adopt an ordinance establishing a 60-day notice of intent to adopt the 2016 through 2036 comprehensive plan update. And this time, I'd ask staff to come forward and brief.
Good morning, Commissioners. This ordinance issues a 60-day notice of intent to adopt the 20-year Mason County Comprehensive Plan update. That includes amendments to our 2005 Comprehensive Plan, the Mason County Land Use Map, amendments to the countywide planning policies, and amendments to Mason County Development Regulations. Mason County is required by Washington State Growth Management Act to conduct a periodic review and update of its comprehensive plan and development regulations to ensure consistency with updated state laws, population and employment projections, and public input. Work on this plan began in 2015 and included discussions with the City of Shelton on updated population and employment forecasts, as well as the Squaxin Island Tribal Nation, Skokomish Tribal Nation, and the communities of Allen and Belfair, as well as state, regional, and local partners and the general public. The update process included identification of new state laws that the comprehensive plan and development regulations must comply with. It included a public review and hearings before the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. The Planning Office and the Planning Commission held numerous public work sessions and community meetings over the past 2 years, taking public input on the 8 required elements of the comprehensive plan, as well as proposed code amendments and other aspects of the plan. We conducted a final public survey in this year that's been open and remains open on 3 key questions to ensure incorporation of public priorities. Based on significant input from the Planning Commission and the public, Mason County developed and then released this 20-year plan for 2016 to 2036 for public review on our website, and it's available in full now, as well as the maps that you see on the reader in the back. This is called our Planning Map Library and will house all the maps that would usually be in paper form in a paper plan, largely now interactive at the parcel level. And a special thanks to Ben Ramsfield, our IT expert, and Jason Wells, our GIS manager, for their assistance with all this. Within the development regulations, there have been 2 rezone requests. There is an electric vehicle charging station ordinance, updates to the Belfair development regulations consistent with our stormwater management practices and general best practices in transportation. An agricultural lands ordinance, public benefit rating system, and there is also an update to our shoreline master program and critical areas ordinance that has been conducted through a separate process largely. And that is a quick overview of our comprehensive plan update.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for staff at this time, Commissioners? Commissioner?
Paula, could you explain what we're doing today?
Right, the 60-day notice of intent to adopt is largely a request in a formal manner to the department, the Washington State Department of Commerce, to begin review and provision of their official feedback to us that will allow us to get to a final plan. And it is also serves as a notice to the public and a request for additional comments, hopefully raising awareness about the process and getting any final feedback.
We discussed some potential changes that may be happening between now and the November 14th date of the hope for final adoption.
Right, the target date.
So as each amendment is considered, do we approve those amendment or those changes at this level and then forward them on to Commerce, or how will that process work as we continue to work through some of the changes?
Right, so we are continuing to receive input and make changes as needed. Commerce is reviewing the document at this snapshot in time, and they'll be giving us feedback on the draft that's online today. And we're continuing to make updates. The Planning Commission has discussed producing a finding of fact that they've started to work on, which is sort of their justification for approving the comprehensive plan update, and also a recorded motion where they may provide ideas about additional work that could be accomplished after the completion of the comp plan update. So we recognize that there's work and study needed. The planning process is a continuum, and we adopt an update to meet our current requirements. So I hope that answers your question about process. I think they'll be forwarding on to you a recommendation as a package.
Okay. One more follow-up,
Sure.
please. There's a lot more work that we'd
That's
all like
right.
to do. We have economic development element that may need some updating, et cetera. Following an adoption of this update, as we go in, as you say, the iterative process, does each of those pieces, as they get changed, then need to go through review by Commerce, or is that incorporated into the next update, review by Commerce?
I think that would be up to you all to direct staff, on how you would like that to proceed. If there's a particular element that you think needs to be adopted right away, we can pursue that through an ordinance and request to Commerce. independently or handle it at the annual update of the comp
At the
plan.
annual, okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Any questions? Okay, sure, go ahead, Colin.
Will this final thing, plus the maps be available at the library?
Yes, we will make copies
Thank you.
available, and state agencies will have copies as well.
Great. And Paula, if you could just, how many public hearings did this go through in the Planning Commission?
The Planning Commission has had a public hearing just about every meeting they've held since April on one element or another. And there's been 8 required elements, so we've had 8 public hearings plus. And in addition, that public survey that took in now over 100 comments from around the county, feedback on that survey was great, so.
Very good, thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions, I'll open the public comment portion of the hearing. If you'd like to make a comment, please come forward to the podium and the chair will recognize you. Okay, seeing no one coming forward for a comment, I'll close the public comment portion, and then I would entertain a motion from the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of the ordinance establishing a 60-day notice of intent to adopt the 2016 through 2036 comprehensive plan update.
And I'll second that and hope for time for discussion.
Yeah, so it's been moved and seconded to adopt an ordinance establishing a 60-day notice of intent to adopt the 2016-2036 comprehensive plan update. Any additional discussion? Commissioner Drexler?
Yes, about 2 years ago when we got started on this, the intention, I think, of this commission, which didn't seem to make it forward to the Planning Commission, was that we would do the mandatory work and work at a more deliberative pace on some of the element changes, some of the amendments that would retool our focus and vision for the growth of Mason County. There was some we had changes of staff and things, and that wasn't quite there. And I just wanted to assure the public, we were able to tool back to most of the mandatory updates. And I think there are people in the public who think we have abandoned the idea that there might be a change of, or a review now of the focus. Paula has done some outreach with the community that we can take in, but I do look forward to, in 2018, working very deliberatively on some more extensive changes to the comp plan for adoption in 2018 that does take a look at the focus of where we're going forward. I was part of the original plan that's being updated, and I know that we were new at this, and there was, because of so many appeals to the Growth Management Hearing Board, of so many things that were attempted by the county at the time, there was a reticence to strike forward and truly make this our plan, our vision for what we want to do to the community, and more of a focus on making sure we were in compliance with kind of this brave new world of the Growth Management Hearing Board, defining what does rural character mean. I think that we've had enough court cases now since that time for us to be able to be a little bit more bold about us defining what does rural character mean in Mason County, and not have to look at Growth Management Hearing Board decisions that were all over the map. And it was very difficult for rural counties to have the boldness to go out and create a plan that acknowledges this is how folks in rural areas want to live. And so I do look forward to being more deliberative next year on some very specific changes, especially on the land use section, and then of course on our economic development section, which acknowledges we do have economic activity outside of our urban growth areas, and we need to acknowledge that. We need to support it in our policies, and then therefore in our development regulations. So I just wanted to assure the public the work's not done completely, but we are behind we're overdue. as far as the state, and that does impact financing and funding for some other non-county organizations. So we need to make sure we get this thing out the door by the end of the year.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we found that we hadn't noticed before, was that the counties actually have the right to define what their rural character is. It does not have to go by the definition of somebody that lives in Seattle. But because of our time constraints, we weren't able to work on that as much and put that in here. Part of the idea was that we would, by defining our rural character, we'd be able to allow for certain businesses to continue to operate that had historically operated, but also to allow for some small businesses out in the area. One of the problems we had is that idea kind of got waylaid and blew up into something that it was never supposed to be. So we had to slow that roll and come back. That was something we were doing on the EDC. But hopefully, as we look at doing it and working on it here in the near future, we do rectify that so we can allow these buildings that have been empty because they were not used for 2 years and they have to stay empty, to allow them to open back up and be a benefit to our community and create jobs, but also the ability to put smaller businesses out there where they are necessary. You know, growing up out here, it was not uncommon to have a shake mill or a little lumber mill down the road, or what. That's how we did our jobs. That's how we fed our families. That was our rural character. So I mimic what you're saying. I hope we do take care of that one as one of our first and foremost. I appreciate all the work that's been done to get us where we're at.
Thank you. Yeah, so hats off to Paula and Dave and staff for putting this together and keeping the Planning Commission going. I was on the Planning Commission when some of this work was done, and appreciate everybody on the Planning Commission who put in lots of late nights and lots of reading on the weekends and during their free time to come prepared to the meetings in order to do the work. So I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, I would just echo the comments that we heard from the other two commissioners and say that this is by no means a finished product. There's much more work to do, and I look forward to starting that work as soon as we can. With that, I would call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That moves us to item 10.2. We have a public hearing to consider the change of control transaction for the required notice for the Wave Holdco franchise agreement. I would ask staff to come forward and brief.
Good morning, Commissioners. Loretta Swanson with Public Works. And this is a hearing to consider a change in ownership with one of our franchisees, Wave Holdco. And under Mason County Code and FCC regulations, if there is a transfer in ownership, the franchisee needs to contact the county, and you, as the Board of County Commissioners, need to consent to that change in ownership. FCC regulations require that the franchisees submit a whole slew of information to the county to review to make sure that we feel comfortable with the financial, technical, and organizational capabilities of the new owner. And so that has been submitted. We've reviewed that with the prosecutor's office. We've reviewed the resolution that approves the transfer, and of course provided the hearing notice. I do have a representative from Wave available if you've got any questions about that. And I should mention also that we did meet with the Wave company and also the new company, Radiate, to talk about their plans and just their organization and how they operate business. So we did have that meeting as well. If there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Questions for staff?
What did you find in your question?
I found that there was a lot of excitement and capability with the new company. So there's, Wave has received several acknowledgments from various consumer reports about their capabilities and customer service. Radiate brings together 3 other companies that have new technologies and new energy to bring to the WAVE partnership. And so between all of them, they're excited about basically expanding and providing some new services and new capabilities to the community.
Have they identified those, or are they still under?
Nothing specific, no, Commissioner.
Okay. I'm sure the public would like to know what
Yes.
they can expect from a new ownership with eager anticipation. May I ask a question
Please.
of the gentleman here? So you are with WAVE. Are you continuing with Radiate then?
Yes, there will not be any organizational changes, any branding changes, anything. Nothing that'll be, really visible. Just on the backside, there will be the other entities that we're referred to. And along with that, actually, we are working, and we're extremely close to launching 1 gig services through your coax in the areas that we serve. So it won't be just little pockets. It will be, if WAVE serves them, you'll have 1 gig available.
Wonderful.
And that's in the extremely near future.
So we have a taste of the improvements to come. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I have some questions that I'd like to ask some of the commission, though, on this issue when we're done.
Okay, hearing no additional questions for staff, we'll move into the public comment portion. If you would like to make comment on this, now's the time to come forward to the podium and the chair will recognize you. Okay, we will close the public comment portion of the hearing and move on to potential motion from the commission.
Commissioner, before we do that, would you mind if we have some discussion first? Before a
What will
motion?
be- Sure.
Okay. I'm going to be asking for something special from the commission on this one. I've asked for information to be given from our staff, and not that they've done anything wrong. It's been very busy, a few weeks as we know, but they have not been able to bring forward some of that information of the authorities we have and stuff in regards to this. I would like to sit and talk with WAVE or somebody out there to talk about some of the issues that the constituents have out there. I deal with WAVE up in my neighborhood. That's where it's at, and my community deals with it, and there have been many different issues, and I'd like to find out where we stand on that and what we can do with some of those things. So what I would like to ask is for a continuation of this hearing for 2 weeks until I can get some information from our staff and we can have some further discussions.
Loretta, does that change anything with what effect would that have?
I suppose it depends on the types of questions. The question before the board today is whether or not the transfer of ownership is acceptable to you. And I think that the findings are consistent with that, and we recommend that the board approve that transfer. If there are questions about service, or other items that way, those are things that we can hammer out or follow up on under our existing franchise agreement. So if we can separate those, I guess I would recommend absolutely pursuing what our rights and responsibilities are under the franchise agreement and still go ahead and make the, approve the resolution transferring.
But at the same time,
Is that,
no, for me, that's not, because it takes away another tool that we may have for negotiation and service area and some issues that we have out in our community. It'd be nice to actually have that discussion and find out what authorities we have, because there are large areas out there that are not serviced at all. And aside from different quality issues and stuff, which we have, it'd be nice to at least have a conversation when there's something behind the conversation, or else we would have already had those conversations, because I know we've tried. So again, that's why I'm asking, not for forever, but I'd like to have 2 weeks. And I guess my question would be, does a 2-week holdover hurt them in any way?
I do not believe so, but I would defer to.
We are on a timeline on the backside, so potentially could push things out, yes.
What would that hurt for 2 weeks?
I would have to follow up with our legal department with that. So, because I'm more of the representative for the technical operations side and not the actual legal and business side. So the technical questions, the things in the field, some of your quality of service, yes, I can address that. But this is separate, as Loretta had mentioned.
And I agree that it is, but at the same time, it's a tool that we have. So commissioners, I am actually, it'll be up to you whether you decide to support it or not, but I am making a motion that we table this for 2 weeks.
Okay, there's been a motion to table this for 2 weeks. Is there a second?
I have more questions, so I can't second that.
If you like, I can quickly email legal counsel and see if I can get a response about what a 2-week delay may do, if that's of any
Theirs or
assistance.
ours?
Yes.
Okay.
Theirs.
Okay, so if, in light of there not being a second for your motion, let's take a brief break. And if Loretta, if you could reach out to legal.
Sure.
Let's, you gonna call or email or? Okay, so we'll be on break until,
Before we break, can I ask, Commissioner, I understand where you're coming from. Without, what I need to know at some level, Loretta.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you.
I was getting busy. Yes.
It seems to me that the purchase of the business has already occurred.
Correct. The transfer has
And so if
occurred.
we don't approve the transfer of the franchise, it seems to me that now we're left with a hole in any kind of service. And I just wanted to verify that, because if the Wave has been purchased by Radiate, Radiate is now asking us to transfer that franchise agreement. If we say no, and Wave doesn't exist, it seems to me that the result would be a void in anybody owning a franchise to provide a service.
It still continues until something else happens with that. The contract is still in place. This is just our ability to actually start to have that conversation and to force that conversation forward somewhere. If something did happen, there are other entities that could come in, and that may be something the community might want to talk about that. But I would hope not.
You potentially have that's what I'm worried about, or not worried about. That's what I'd like verification on. If for this type of an action to happen, I need to know what the long-term
Yes,
ramifications.
and that's why I wasn't asking this to say no. I was asking for a continuance for 2 weeks to look at the different options and see to answer some of those same questions.
But we're still here without an action being made. And 2 weeks from now, there could still be a no action taken or a no vote taken.
That's correct, but right now that wouldn't interfere with any service or anything.
Not right now, but once.
and I would tend to agree. I think we're looking at two separate issues here, and I don't know why we would punish Radiate at this point, who is simply asking for a transfer of franchise for what you may perceive to be a lack of service. And so but I think at this point, I think we're cutting into time that Loretta could be using to get in touch with their legal. So I think if we could just break momentarily and get clarification.
I have one more question for Loretta on that, though. If this was to be approved, when does this contract end that we have another opportunity to have this discussion?
That's a good question.
Bear with me, Commissioner, and I will find our current franchise agreement. This was executed in 2012, I believe. September 2011 was the execution of the franchise agreement. And of course, I'm not finding it immediately. So 10 years, approximately 4 years from now, is when we would be, we would start discussing terms of franchise prior to that, but approximately 4 years, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay, so are we able to break now? Do you have any other questions at this point? Okay, so let's break. Loretta, if you can contact their legal, and then we'll come back.
Will do.
In a few minutes when you have a chance to talk with them.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, we're on break. Okay, very good. Okay, so we're back from break, and Loretta, you have an update for us?
Yes, I do, thank you. So I was able to contact legal counsel for WAVE, and they indicated that they are hoping to close everything up by the end of this month. So while they're hopeful that things could be wrapped up here today, they said a 2-week delay is not catastrophic by any means. They agree that it is a separate issue, that the transfer of ownership is simply that the terms and compliance of the franchise agreement is a separate issue, but they definitely want to make sure that their customers are happy and that the county is happy, so they're glad to meet and follow up on any concerns in that regard. And also, if you would like to talk with them directly, I can provide a call-in number and they can provide comments and testimony at this time as well.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, just a, 1 second, Commissioner. Just a logistics question, Melissa, if the commission votes to continue this for 2 weeks, what would we need to think about from a noticing standpoint? Does that change anything, or?
Actually, as long as we just define that it would be September 26th, which is 2 weeks from today, then it would be fine, noticing wise, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, given that, do you have a,
Yeah, so with that being said, again, want to clarify, this is one of the only opportunities that I've had since I've been here to be able to have these conversations. And I have reached out, and I have a community that is in need and has issues. And that's the reason why I'm asking for this from the commission, is that I'm given an opportunity to take advantage of this situation, to work this out and try to benefit my community, as I'm sure you would do the same if it was happening to you and you were dealing with this, or you had these opportunities. Even if nothing comes out of it, I have to at least try, because I've talked to my community, I've had issues that have come up and things that they have tried to get to happen that we just can't. This is one of the opportunities that I see for the moment. So that, with that, I'm trying to find out what we have to work with. And for that, support service staff, not you, by the way, was going to provide me with the information that they had not. And when I talked to him and stuff yesterday, he was not able to get that for me at this time. I have no problem with that. Like I said, it's been a busy time the last month. But with that, I need those 2 weeks. So I respectfully ask and make a motion that we postpone this hearing until September 26th, at which time we should be able to wrap everything up.
is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to continue item number 10.2's public hearing until September 26th. Any additional discussion?
Commissioner Netherland, the assumption is that your, and I apologize if I'm misspeaking, the assumption is that your approval of transferring the agreement over to this new company is conditional. And I don't know what those conditions are. I don't know what the issues are that you would like to have addressed prior to your, potentially, your approval of this change. I want to go on record saying I would be in favor of the transfer of the franchise agreement, but I would hope that you would share with the commission any concerns that we need to have known. I'm working in a vacuum here of what potentially could be an issue. So I just want to go on record saying I don't see a problem with approving this transfer, and I wait to hear what the issues are.
And I agree with that. Again, the problem that I had right now is I thought this would be something that we would actually discuss at a briefing, but we didn't get the information, wasn't able to put something together to find out the best way to handle what to talk about. And it's only because of that I'm asking for the continuation. There may even be nothing when it's all said and done that we can do about it. But if there is, this is the only opportunity we have that I see, and I've seen since I've been here, to do something about it. We all want to make our lives better for our constituents up there, in each of our districts. This is just one of those opportunities where this has an impact on my district, very much so. And this is the only opportunity I've had, as I said, to have that discussion with them to try and facilitate any change. Other than that, it's been non-existent. So any opportunity I can get to make their lives better and to get their representation, so to speak, because one of the problems you have with any large company is sometimes an inability to have representation, anybody that's actually looking out for you or talking with you, except for just as an individual customer, and say that's just the way it is. Might be an opportunity. So I thank you if you would vote yes on it. And like I said, it's only a continuation. I'm not asking you to vote against it at this point. I'm just asking so I can get the information that we can have a briefing and discuss it in a briefing whether it's the best thing or not to do for the county.
Okay, I came here prepared to support this today, and the only reason that I will vote in favor of the continuance is because it appears there will be no impact to the transaction between these two businesses, and so. But I do think that we need a briefing Monday in order to understand what your concerns are. If this is service-related, what those service-related concerns are, how you intend to use this to change that. Otherwise, I will be moving forward on the 26th with supporting this transfer of franchise. And so I hope that you're able to come forward with that with staff next week and have a clearer picture for us as to what we may or may not be able to gain from delaying this transfer of franchise. So those are my thoughts regarding postponing it, and I appreciate WAVE being amenable to that as Commissioner Netherland tries to get a little bit more information. So any additional discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion carries, and the public hearing is continued until September 26th.
Oh, I guess I want to ask for clarification. Is there opportunity for, are we leaving open the opportunity for testimony?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think based on what we find in the next week and a half. Yeah. Okay, very good. So that moves us to item number 12. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
We are adjourned. Have a good day, everybody.